This is Radio Cairo, and this is the World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad is at the control, and today in the World of Info, we present the world of books. And today we have three very special books. And the first book is simply The Other Side of Change by Maya Shankar. The second book is another interesting book which goes around the cemeteries of Cairo, the historical cemetery of Cairo by Dr. Galila El-Adi, and another book with the same topic, which is The Visit, Letters to the Imam. And of course, these belongs to the same topic, so they will consider them as one book. And the third book is a very interesting book that is called The Emotion Hacks by Ryan Martin. So today in the world of books, 3 or almost 4 books talking about very interesting subjects. Stay tuned to us in Radio Cairo, and we're coming just after the break with the world of books. So we are in the world of books of today, and the first book is The Other Side of Change by Maya Shankar. And this book is a very interesting book because she is a psychologist with a BA from Yale University, PhD from Oxford, and after PhD studies from Stanford. And she was an important counselor in Obama administration in the field of social sciences. So she's a writer, a scientist, and a researcher, and an ex-violinist. So she has written this beautiful book, really talking about a very important thing, which is how change or things can change us completely when we are subjected to things which are beyond our control. What attracted her attention to this subject was simply the first thing, which is she started her life loving the violin, and she wanted very much to be a violinist. And she had the chance to study violin with one of the most important and the most famous violin teacher in the world. Back in New York, she studied that, and at the age of 15, when at the peak of her excelling in the study of violin, she developed a certain inflammation in one of the tendons of her hand. Although she has been subjected to medical treatment and even surgical treatment, unfortunately, she couldn't recover from that, and therefore she had to abort her idea of becoming a violinist simply because this will be almost impossible. So she decided to go on studying and become an eminent psychologist, which was a career that she has been very successful at. But because of this setback, because of this frustration of not being able to study violin and become a famous violinist, she thought that what should we talk about and how should we do a research about the people who faced a major frustration, or what we can call a catastrophic frustration, if their only hope has been destroyed for one way or another, or one reason or another, and therefore they will have to face the tragedy of starting their career or their life in a different perspective, in a different route. For example, somebody who lost somebody who loves, or he has been deserted by his loved one, or he suffered from a health problem like her, or her herself. She, after becoming a very eminent psychologist, and she always wanted to raise a family of her own, she got married to a very intelligent gentleman, and unfortunately it was found out that there is a problem with her uterus that she cannot conceive. So they used a surrogate uterus, and unfortunately it failed 2 times to have conceive a child. So these 2 major frustrations in her life pushed her to go for this study and to study how people can really cope with that. And that's how we can look at that. She had, for example, studying the problem of different chapters in her book, talking about the problem of severe frustration. She talked about Olivia. Olivia was a normal student coming from a good family, and she's studying in a very prestigious university among a lot of prestigious class people. And at the same time, she had a boyfriend from a very high family, and they were intending to live happily and get married soon after her graduation. But in her final year, she developed a very strange disease that was considered to be like a locked-in. That is, that she cannot talk or move or make any movement. The only thing that she can do is to use her eyelids in communication. And of course, this is really very difficult situation. For almost 6 months to 1 year, she started doing heavy physiotherapy, and with her great will, was able to improve her life and her lifestyle, and she started to walk and talk. But of course, she never became the same person that she was before this stroke. However, the idea is that the questions that the author Maya Shankar has put for this beautiful young lady was, how were you able to cope? How were you able to find light in the end of the tunnel? How did you really find this innate nature that pushed you to go further on? And this was sort of a very important question to her, and this is how she thought that this life would go like. Another example was a very famous anchor man who made a grave mistake on air by getting into trouble by narrating or giving wrong information to the listeners. And of course, he was stopped from his work and put on probation. And this has really shaken his confidence and his self-confidence. But he was able to survive that and go on work forward. Another gentleman was suddenly suffered from what is we call the tinnitus. The tinnitus is a complete bad note of voice that he gradually and always maintained to live hearing in it. And all treatments failed to remove this tinnitus from his ear, but he was able to survive. Although it is there, he was able to survive on going onward with that. Another interesting story was about a girl that was living in Latin America and then immigrated to the United States, and she was having a lot of stories about her family and the folk stories, and suddenly she had an accident, has fallen on the ground, and she developed complete amnesia of her previous life. And then when she returned, her memory started coming back again gradually. And she was able, after regaining this memory, to forget all the bad experience that prevented her from propagating the information and the life that she had prior to this accident. And this makes it very special idea to go on forward and to find a way to survive, and at the same time understand that you can build a new life on top of a life when you have failed one of the greatest hopes in your life. This is, of course, can tell us how these methods that these distinguished people have used to recover from the aching facts that they have lost the biggest hope of their accomplishment, and that they were able to do a resurrection following this loss, gives you the hope that there is an other side of change. Although you are frustrated, although that you have had a terrible thing that prevented you from seeking the aim of your life, yet you have to go on, and yet to have to to survive and go on, even though that you are not able to fulfill your biggest dream. A very interesting book by Maya Shankar about the other side of change, a book that I really would advise that you would read and understand the message behind such a great book. So we are back with the world of info, and today is the world of books. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad is still at the control, and today we are talking about two books that speak on the same subject and topic, which is The Cemeteries of Cairo, the Historical Cemeteries of Cairo by Galila Al-Qadi, and the cemeteries or the cemetery of Imam Shafi'i in particular by Sarah Hassan Marzouk, called The Visit, Letters from the Cemetery of Al-Imam. So we are going to talk today about a very dear subject to Egyptians, and that is the cemeteries and the dead ones, their family members, the saints, the people that they love, the people that they care for, and where the trip ended, how they were found their place for eternity to be buried near the skirts or the outskirts of Cairo. So today we are going to talk about these two interesting books. And Dr. Galila Al-Qadi is an architect, and she is a professor in architecture planning in one of the universities of France. And she has written this book with extensive research of all the cemeteries surrounding Cairo. Of course, the idea of building a cemetery near the city is better than burying the deceased in the premises of the homes of this person. And that's why it will transfer a lot of diseases and transmittable diseases. So people used to build their cemeteries away from their homes, and building these cemeteries in the beginning when Amr ibn al-As came as a conqueror of Egypt, and he was welcomed by the Egyptian Christians because at that time the Egyptian Christian church has been under great scrutiny by the Byzantine Empire, and they were even putting the Pope Benjamin the First. He was in self-exile because he knew if they discovered his place, they would definitely kill him. So when Benjamin came back to authority and met Amr ibn al-As, Amr ibn al-As was so kind to him, and there was a discussion about the importance of the Muqattam hill. And he was telling him that in the Muqattam region, a lot of saints are buried, and it's a very very sacred place that the Egyptians loved to bury their dead there. So Amr ibn al-As, when he visited the Muqattam region, said, and it is on the eastern side of Al-Fustat, the capital that he has built at the apex of the delta, which later on has been transformed to Cairo, which was 5 or 10 kilometers to the north of Al-Fustat. So Amr ibn al-As said, if I die in Egypt, I would prefer to be buried as well in the Muqattam region. And this is what actually happened, but we don't know where his tomb is nowadays. So what happened is that Amr ibn al-As decided to bury the dead of the Muslims in the Muqattam region, and this was called Al-Arafah. And in this area, which was the eastern part of the Fustat, the capital of Egypt, also in this region, there were some of the descendants of the Prophet and relatives of the Prophet decided to live in Egypt. One of the most important or eminent one was As-Sayyida Zainab, who is a grandchild of the Prophet Muhammad والسلام, from Al-Hussein. And she was living in Egypt and living in the area where near the cemetery, and she loved this place very much. 2 kilometers away from her was living Imam Shafi'i, and the Shafi'i is a great Muslim scholar who is a descendant of the uncles of the Prophet Muhammad والسلام, And he was a great scholar and a Muslim theologist who was able to form the Shafi'i branch of Islam, which is a very moderate and a very modest source of Islam. And he has learned in the different places. He originally was born in Gaza. He traveled to Medina and in Mecca and took the science from Malik, and also went to Abu Hanifa and took from him as well the science. And he later on went to Egypt, where he has put down his beautiful book, the Al-Umm, which is considered to be one of the modest and most modest ways of sect of Islam, which always begged for complete coordination between different sects of people, and always accepted the other, whoever the other is. And this is what made him in the hearts of Egyptian a very important man, like a saint. And actually, Sayyidah Nafisa also admired him, and she said about him, he's the guy who used to be always in good ablation. And ablation is the preparation of the prayer. Before going to pray, you need to wash your hands and your face and your forearms and foot, in order to recover the purity of your place and the purity of your body to be prepared to pray. However, later on, after the Fatimid period and the arrival of the Ayyubids, they were very fond of Imam Shafi'i because of his modernism and his very modest explanation of Islam. So what happened with Imam Shafi'i is that the Ayyubid dynasty, especially the King Sultan Salahuddin Ayyubi, was a student of Imam Shafi'i, and he was a great role model of his. That the wife of Salahuddin Ayyubi is buried in the tomb of, not very far away, of the tomb of Imam Shafi'i. Also, the prince, a lot of the King Al-Adil, the famous Sultan, who was the brother of the King Salahuddin Ayyubi, was ruling Egypt, and his wife was buried also near or the vicinity of the mosque of the tomb of Imam Shafi'i. Also, another important point is that Imam Shafi'i has, and also the son of Salahuddin Ayyubi, Al-Aziz Osman, is also buried in this tomb. Sultan Kamil, the son of Al-Adil, was the one who has constructed the beautiful dome of Imam Shafi'i, having the beautiful boat on top of it, which is a symbol of how the boat of the science of Shafi'i will act as a savior from the being infidel, and directing you to the shore of belief and the shore of faith. And that's a very beautiful mark of this beautiful dome, which was built during the reign of Sultan Kamil. And of course, not far away from that, the mosque was built, and the mosque is a very important mosque of Imam Shafi'i. Originally, it was built by the Salahuddin Ayyubi, and later on replaced by Abdurrahman Kadkhoda and renovated. And then it was renovated also during the reign of Khedive Tawfiq. When we look at this, in the nearby or the vicinity of the tomb of Imam Shafi'i is also the rest place of the tomb of Lays ibn Zayd, the famous scholar as well, and theologist and Muslim theologist, who was also very famous for propagating the moderate Islam. And unfortunately, Lays didn't leave a lot of Lays ibn Sa'd didn't leave a lot of his books, because he was not writing as much as Imam al-Shafi'i did. Imam al-Shafi'i would dedicate 1/3 of his time to explain to the people and to give science, 1/3 for reading and increasing his information, and 1/3 for writing. And that's why he has a lot of writings that went on surviving up till now. Therefore, Imam al-Shafi'i, who was very dear to a lot of Muslims, we find that a lot of people decided to build their tombs next to Imam al-Shafi'i, including, for example, recently in the 19th century, the royal family of Muhammad Ali built their cemetery and their tombs in very close proximity to the tomb of Imam al-Shafi'i. Also, the Bakriya, that is the grandchildren of Abu Bakr, also built their tombs next to Imam al-Shafi'i. And a lot of rich people and famous people and poor people always liked to bury their dead beside the Imam al-Shafi'i. Even, for example, the governors of Egypt from the Ottoman period, whenever any one of them dies in Cairo during his tenure, he would prefer to be buried close to Imam al-Shafi'i. The secret of Imam al-Shafi'i as a great man, and at the same time, the amount of letters that reach the post office of nearby to the Imam al-Shafi'i mosque are a huge number of letters, which are all asking Imam al-Shafi'i to pray for them or to bring them coolness and calmness to their problems and solve of their problems. So this is the cemetery on the eastern side of what was Fustat. But now, as the famous Cairo has been built up, we can see that the Fatimids have designed tombs for their Fatimid family in the Eastern Palace, in the garden of the Eastern Palace, inside the walls of Cairo, while the rest of the population used to bury their dead in front of the Nasr Gate, the Victory Gate, and the Conquest Gate. And this included a cemetery that has been used during the Ayyubid time and during the Mamluks time, and including, for example, the famous tomb of Burckhardt, who was a very important Swiss adventurer, and he's the one who discovered the Abu Simbel temple and removed some of the sand surrounding it. He lived in Cairo, and his burial site is still there in front of the Victory Gate and the Conquest Gate. Also, unfortunately, Ibn Khaldun was also buried in this place, but we haven't found his tomb. It has been demolished by time. So this is the famous cemetery in front of Bab al-Nasr and Bab al-Futuh. Another cemetery that was built during the Mamluks' time is called the Mugawrin. Mugawrin means the people who are living nearby, and it goes to the people who were students in Al-Azhar. So students of Al-Azhar and sheikhs of Al-Azhar, whether they are the grand sheikhs or lower in the hierarchy, were buried in this area in the Mugawrin. North to this Mugawrin, we can find the Northern Cemetery, which was the innovations and the urbanization that was made by the Mamluks of the Bahri Mamluks and the Borgi Mamluks. Borgi Mamluks, and in this area we can find almost 25 Mamluk monuments and 5 complexes of kings and sultans. So we have the Inal Sultan complex, which belongs to the 15th century. We have Farag ibn Bar'u, which belongs to the 14th century. We have Brisbay, which belongs to the 14th, and Qaitbay, which belongs to the 15th century. And of course, the Qunsowa Sa'id, which also belongs to the 15th and the 16th century. Besides a lot of tombs of members of the royal family, like the branch of Al-Khidif Tawfiq, he's buried there, and his son Abbas Hilmi II, and also some of his grandchildren are also buried in this place. And of course, the Princess Shukar has a very beautiful tomb in this area. And of course, the tombs of the cemetery of the Egyptian army, of the armed forces that have lost their lives during defending the country from 1948 onwards. And this is the Northern Cemetery. Another cemetery which is also in this area or in this region is simply the cemetery in front of the citadel on the side of the city. That is on the eastern side on the western side of the citadel is called the cemetery of Al-Ghafir or cemetery of Bab al-Wazir. And this is really very interesting because it has a lot of tombs, old and new, and some of them belong to the Mamluk period. And so this is really very interesting, like the Sangak al-Yusufi and Yunus Dawood monuments, and of course Muslim. So this is a great effort that was made by both Galila Al-Qadi in giving us the whole structure and the architecture in a very scientific way of all the cemeteries that are surrounding Cairo, and the particular work of Sarah Hassan Marzouk, which has given us information about the beautiful area of Imam al-Shafi'i with a lot of nostalgia and a lot of emotions involved. Two books that deserve to be read, and we're coming after the break with the final book of today. Stay tuned always to the World of Info. So you're still listening to the World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr MABROUK. Dua Muhammad is still at the control, and we are coming from Studio 3 in this beautiful afternoon in Cairo. And the third and the final book of today is The Emotional Hacks by Ryan Martin. This is a really very interesting book. And it talks to us by Ryan Martin. He's a professor of psychology in Wisconsin University. And he's quite famous for his books about anger management, how to manage your own anger. This is one book. And the second book is how to manage the anger of others, or how can you deal with angry people. And this book of today is called Emotion Hacks. Hacks are the ways, like the hacker, and its explanation is the tricks that you would make in order to overcome a certain thing or to control one thing. Like, it's example in the computer business, when you are say that your telephone has been hacked or something like that. So the idea is from this book is how to train yourself to tailor your reaction. And this is very important because every day we have certain situations, especially in work or in life or in family or in the normal life of ours, which is there is a stimulus that will definitely have on you a certain emotional feeling. And this emotional feeling will be different depending on your mood, your current mood at the time of this stimulus. And then how are you going to interpret this emotional or this stimulus and to react towards it with a good or a bad emotional feeling. And then there will be the reaction, which is the expression. So this is the idea. How can we react to everyday stimulus? And he started by saying that there are 50 ways to make you able to react positively to any situation. And he started by giving examples. For example, when you are in a hurry and going on your way and you've been delayed, and suddenly you find somebody who's delaying you or using his car as an obstacle against you, and then you would start yelling at him. Even if you're not going to yell, this is going to make you angry, and you will say, this is a very bad man. So what Ryan Martin is saying, that we shouldn't consider him to be a bad man, we consider him as a bad attitude or a bad move from him. So we talk about the attitude, not to talk about the person who has made this attitude, because we don't know this person in particular. What made him do this step on taking your place in parking or whatever? So we don't give him the benefit of the doubt, and we start insulting him, even if we insult him in our mind without making a reaction. But this is responsible for putting a lot of negativity in ourselves. So how can we deal with that? How can you react? So he said, let's try to identify what happened. And if we identify what happened, then definitely we are going to know how to react towards this problem. And the second important point is, if we are going to identify this and identify the stimulus, we have also to know what is our mood, current mood at the time of action. Are we in a hurry? Are we anxious? Are we ill-tempered? Are we very going, and therefore to overreact, because the stimulus, even though it's not that big, is coming on our exposed nerves. So we should always anticipate and try to judge, does this stimulus need a very severe reaction, or should it be a bit limited? So take control of the situation is the idea. So how to take control of the situation? Either to distract yourself or modify your reaction towards this procedure. And then there is the to embrace the healthy distraction, because if we say that I'm going to distract myself from what happened, I'm going to distract myself from the fact that this guy has made a traffic problem for me, so I will either try to distract myself by cooling myself, or by looking for helps. And helpers here could be definitely a lot of things. They could be a person that I can trust, who's going to tell me or help me to nullify the effect of this hazardous stimulus. Or I could go on exercising or meditation or playing sports in order to distract me from this severe situation. And I always have to use my memories of how, when my reaction was severe, I lost a lot. And therefore, I should always try to choose the good memory of the reaction and try to repeat it, and not going to committing the mistake once again. So this is an important thing. Always when we are subjected ourselves to, for example, going for an exam or a test, we have to not to predict bad things. We don't have to think that this is going to turn out to be a failure like last time. We have always to react in a different way. We have to stay always optimistic. The second important thing is that if we are hungry, then we'll be hangry or angry. And this is something which is very important. When you are hungry, you are more liable to be angry. You are more liable to commit mistakes. You are more liable to feel the effect of the low blood sugar on your mood. So you have to eat well before going for any activity that will necessitate a reaction. So, for example, if you are going for an exam, if you are going to do a surgical operation, if you are doing whatever, this is important. And then you have to eat well. You have to eat omega-3. You have to eat vegetables. You have to avoid sugar, because the sugar has the reflex that it can give you a high of happiness, and the low, once it's reduced, then you become depressed. And we have to eat lean protein. We have to sleep well, and because if we are not sleeping well, we are going more to be angry, and our reactions could be difficult to interpret. We have to exercise regularly to decrease the stress and increase the mood, and to increase our self-esteem. We have to stay always hydrated. We don't have to go into pure dehydration, because dehydration depresses the mood. The caffeine has a high and a low effect. It increases your mood, improves your mood, but if you take more big doses of it, then you can become very agitated. The alcohol is very dangerous, because you cannot work on alcohol, and alcohol will make you a lot of misjudgments, and therefore a lot of bad reactions. So another important thing is to spend time in nature. You have to walk in a garden or walk in a place. This will definitely improve your senses and improve your mind. So these are the helpers that we are have to help us in order to control our feelings. We have to go for eating well, sleeping well, exercising, and drinking water, spending time in nature, and taming our memories and being objective and expecting the good, not expecting the bad. And another thing is to manage the stress. For example, we have to do the deep breath exercise and we have to find ourselves decent hobbies, like, for example, examining the art or seeing the art, recognizing your mood. So how should we feel before that? Another important experiment that was done with psychologists is to let the people write their moods in different periods of time of the day and to analyze their mood. Is it related to a certain external factor or an internal factor? And therefore try to engage openly with the others and drop the labels. You don't have to label uh, human beings with their own deeds or with their own things that they're doing. So don't label the person, label the thing that he has made, saying this is bad or this is foolish, but don't say he's a fool, because this will always make you a bad judge of his character and therefore get into more into animosities. You have to avoid the catastrophizing everything. Don't say that I have lost everything, I'm a failure or whatever, but be focused on planning at the times of catastrophe, how to get out of this catastrophe, and therefore avoiding overgeneralization. So people don't say that people are, we should not trust people, we should not text people, it's always going to be raining. All this stuff means that we are generalizing. We shouldn't generalize these things. Avoid misplacing blame and don't jump to conclusions. So this is very important beliefs. Identify your core beliefs, and it is very important to know what is your real core and what are you think of. And don't try to be always becoming self-entitled, because if you think that you are self-entitled, then you will be always over expecting gratitude and success, and this is another failure. So deal effectively with rumination, and rumination is a very bad thing. You're always, by meaning that you remember always the bad things that happen to you in your life, and this will always make you or trigger you to feel that every time you'll pass into a similar situation, you'll end up with a bad experience. So you should always pretend to know your expectations. It shouldn't be that high expectations or very low expectations. It should be sane expectations so that you don't get disappointed. And we should accept the situation to get out of it. But we shouldn't always say, I'm going to fail because I know that this is my failure. So you're always refocusing and don't take things personally. Don't expect the change in behavior that will happen. So this is really an important book that takes you by the hand to say to you what you should do. We cannot do the whole 50 things, but we can pick 3 or 4 of these points that will help us to control our reactions and control our feelings and to get rid of the bad feelings. What are the bad feelings? There is the anger, there is the fear, the frustration, the disgust, the guilt feeling, and of course sadness. How to avoid that, how to look at the broader value from outside and practice mindfulness and practice definitely meditation will definitely lead us to be easily to communicate with others, to try to solve the problems and to be cool while supporting this. And this can happen only if you have decided to change your physique and change your physical reactions and be prepared by drinking proper water, by hydrating yourself, by eating properly, by exercising moderately, and by taking a hobby and all this, and going around in the nature. All this will make you prepared and having an easy-going mood. And when you have this easy-going mood, when you receive the stimulus of any act, whether this is good or bad, your reaction will be guarded and not automated to the anger side or the angry side. Well, this is definitely great advice from the author, who is a very experienced professor, Ryan Martin. And the book is Emotion Hacks. Stay tuned to us in Radio Cairo.